Hi, beautifuls. Welcome back to Women, Wine and Wisdom. I'm Jummy.
I'm Naomi.
And today we have two guest speakers and they're going to introduce themselves to you. So, Anthony, would you like to start?
So Anthony, mental health advocate, oversharer, massively oversharer. Yeah, can be quite emotional person as well. Just everything mental health, mental well-being. Yeah, I'm there for and happy to share my personal stories with you.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you.
Farhan?
And I am Farhan, consultant, program manager, work in IT. Long, painful history of mental health issues. I'm just here to talk about the subject at hand, but based on my own experiences.
Okay. Thank you. So if you haven't already guessed, the theme for today is mental health because it's Mental Health Week. So we're going to be diving in, and just to start, because I'm a little bit of a geek. So work actually, we did a half-day mental health course, and there was a little quiz in there, and I kind of want us to go through it. I'm not going to answer because obviously the answers are in front of me. So depression. The average episode of depression lasts 6 to 8 months. Is that true or false?
Yeah, I can relate to that.
Good.
I would say so, yeah.
I believe so.
Yes.
Did you notice I looked at you last?
I'm just going to look to Anthony for all the answers to the questions.
Okay, so the next question is, the 3 core symptoms needed to diagnose depression are an unusually sad mood that won't go away. I'm going to repeat that. An unusually sad mood that won't go away. Lack of energy and tiredness. And having difficulty sleeping. True or false? Now I'm going to start with you.
Oh, why me?
I think it's going to be good because regardless if it's right or wrong, we're all going to learn. To be honest, I'm not sure I would have remembered half of this.
I can only speak from my own experiences, but I can relate to, I would say those symptoms of it for sure.
Okay.
As well as others.
Yeah. So you would say true?
I would say true.
No, what would you say?
Yeah, I'd say true. No, I do agree. I do. When I've spoken to people who have suffered from mental health, they have mentioned some of those symptoms, and so I do think it's true.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say it's true.
Okay.
It's
really
ironic,
interesting.
Though. Sorry, it is. It's ironic though that one of you can't sleep, but you're also very tired all the time. Which is a strange place to be, and I've been in that place itself.
And it's really funny that you mentioned that. So the actual answer, again, I'm putting actual because everyone's going to have different experiences. So the answer is actually false. So an unusually sad mood and lack of energy and tiredness is, but I've written down here difficulty sleeping as a symptom of depression, but it's not a core symptom. So it's not one of the core, but it's obviously one of the symptoms. So it's interesting. So it's interesting that you mentioned that.
Well, it is. You do tend to sleep a lot more, I found. But then again, I've suffered from chronic insomnia in the past as well. And so you're constantly tired and yet you can't sleep. Is that because the mind's racing? For me, it was just you can't turn off. You just can't switch off and relax. And I was constantly in a stressed state. And especially at night, your mind's racing. I mean, at the worst point, I was living off 45 minutes sleep a day.
Wow.
We're definitely going to have to dive into that a little bit more.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Anxiety is always unhelpful. Is that true or false?
False.
Shh,
False.
That is correct. Okay. Anxiety can cause very physical symptoms, including rapid heart rate, muscle tension, sweating, sleep disturbances, nausea, chest pains, shallow breathing, and even fainting.
Yeah.
Not Anthony.
Oh gosh.
Farhan.
Yeah, I'd say true.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You get things like anxiety attacks, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Eating disorders. I'm not going to do all of them. I'm just going to do one for eating disorders. So eating disorders are a diet that's gone wrong. They are all about food and weight. Is that true or false?
No, that's false.
That's false.
No.
Yeah. And eating disorders present a real threat to physical health. True or false?
True.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Perfect. There are a few more, but I want to get into the conversation.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So what does mental health mean to you guys?
Me first?
Yeah, maybe Farhan first.
mental health, what it means for me, it's a long history of struggling with it, or struggling with not having a mentally healthy mind. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say that's what it means for me. Just day-to-day struggles of maintaining or trying to maintain stability, whilst at the same time dealing with the pressures, the responsibilities, the stresses of everyday life.
Okay. That's actually a good definition. For me, I would probably say something along the lines of like the resilience of the mind, and how you navigate that day to day.
For sure.
For sure. Nay, what do you say? What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I feel like mental health is, gosh, there's so many ways to describe it.
Yeah.
But I think it is day-to-day struggles and challenges that you're constantly facing every day, every time you wake up.
Everyone has mental health. Obviously, everyone's like your physical health. I think there's a difference of the way people look at it. So mental ill health is completely different to mental health. So your mental health is just, you can either be strong or weak. So your cup can spill over easily, or you can be a bit more resilient and you can deal with the pressures in day to day. But if you have mental ill health, then it's completely different. So it can be anxiety disorders, eating disorders, GAD, so generalized anxiety disorder, which is a lot more, you are literally panicking constantly. It can last for months. OCD, so is what I have, obsessive compulsive disorder. This is all mental ill health. So yeah, it's different. Mental health is just, if you have healthy day-to-day habits, then your mental health will be strong. But if you're mentally unwell, so you have mental ill health, then it's completely different. You need to go down the route of seeking advice, seeking help, helping yourself with strategies every single day. They're very different things, I think. But I think they get put in the same bracket, and everyone just seems to think that mental health is the same thing, and it's not.
I think it's good that you've kind of like explained that and really differentiated the two, because like you just said, a lot of people will just kind of band it together, and I think even I said it earlier, it's just like mental health, you just kind of put it in one bracket, but there's actual mental ill health and mental health as you just described. How did you identify or realize that you had mental health? Because I feel like a lot of people kind of don't realize that they
and
have
again,
it.
is the correct term, because obviously Nay just said mental health. Is it
mental ill health? Yeah, sorry.
If people have a diagnostic of mental ill health, then yes. But normal mental health can be like you're going to the gym, so your mental health is strong. You're not going to the gym, for instance, or eating rubbish food, then your mental health can suffer from that. But mental ill health is different. It's like you've been diagnosed with, or not necessarily diagnosed, but you know that you're going through something that's not considered normal.
And that could be self-diagnosis as well, I'm
Oh,
assuming.
definitely. Yeah, most people don't really go to... So if you think of the statistics with having GAD, so generalized anxiety disorder, it's like 6 out of 100 people, but there's definitely more people that have chronic anxiety daily. But it's because they don't go and have a proper diagnosis. So it's hard to tell the numbers. So OCD is only like 1.2% in the UK. But you hear so many people saying, I'm a little bit OCD. But that's because they're diagnosing themselves, and there's different traits of it as well, like massively. But it's mental ill health. I would say I suffer from mental ill health quite severely. But my coping strategies, because I've known I've had it since I was like 4. So
wow.
How did you, again, 4 years old, that's a really young age to be able to identify that.
It's only as being an adult that I realised, looking back, that was not a normal behaviour. And having intrusive thoughts, for instance, is which I suffer from daily. You have that when you're 4 years old. And that's why my first memory is an intrusive thought. And it's only as an adult, when I was 33, that I realised that, that was not normal to be having that thought.
Backwards.
It's interesting because you mentioned the official statistics of, how many people out of how many have a particular disorder, right? But that's generally, if you... The statistics can be a little bit misleading, just for the fact that a lot of people don't realize what they have, right? Or they go undiagnosed, right? For me, it was exactly that. I spent many years depressed, right? Suffering from depression and not having a clue what the hell was going on, why it was I was feeling that way. It took me, it took me at least a couple of years before I self-diagnosed, right? I asked the question, I was like, what is wrong with me? Surely this is not normal, right? Surely not everyone goes through what I'm feeling. And so it took me a while. So whilst I didn't go to someone and speak to them about the issues I was having, I spent years, it was an undisclosed disorder I had, which I didn't know about until I went out there, started asking questions and realizing, oh, hold on, you've got depression. Yeah.
Do you feel like there was any event that triggered it?
Yeah.
No, looking back on it.
No, it wasn't. It was literally off my own back. Like, I spent many years, and this is such a cliche, right? But when depression hit for me, it was literally like there was a fog. There was like a thick black fog on the top of my brain that just wouldn't go away. That just wouldn't lift. That's how I would physically describe it, right? And no, there was no avenues for me to discuss with anyone or speak to anyone about it.
I really want to go into that after as well, just because I feel like men and women, mental health is slightly different. And I feel like that not having someone to talk to about it.
Being a man
really
as well.
Thing.
That's the thing. This is the other big thing between men and women. And, appreciate that I'm being very binary here, right? But with men and women tend to vocalize a lot more. They tend to speak about their feelings, and men do not, right? And so, I internalized a lot of it, didn't want to discuss it with anyone. And then I just hit a point. I was like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of feeling like this. I need to find out what is going on with me, why I'm feeling like this.
Was there any other symptoms as well, other than the kind of like brain fog? And the reason why I ask is because I feel like there's quite a few people that may potentially be going through depression. I want them to be able to be like, oh, maybe that's a symptom that I can relate to. Maybe do I need to speak to somebody about it? Do I need to talk to someone? Was there anything else that you experienced or felt?
Well, as soon as I started doing the breakthrough for me was, yes, I suffer from depression, right? And then once I had that realization, then I was able to try and vocalize my emotions, right? And then so after that I realized, and again, this was not just through reading, but this was speaking with, I went to see counselors, I went to see therapists, hypnotherapy I did for a time, and then so I was able to vocalize. So it wasn't just depression. Like I had crippling anxiety. I was low self-esteem, low self-worth, chronic insomnia. Like literally, I couldn't sleep, and anger. Right. And this is true for most men, right? Is anger or rage, right? Which is basically being angry all the time. And so those were the other things that, once I opened the door and realized, yes, depression, then I was able to map what I was feeling onto these other things, speak to other people, do my own reading. As a result of it, I was able to say, I just can't deal with stress. I hit adulthood like an absolute train wreck, and I didn't have any coping mechanisms. And so even the slightest bit of stress, I just fell to pieces. Depression kicked in immediately after that, right? Then the insomnia kicked in, then the anxiety kicked in. It was just like a snowballing effect, and it was horrendous. It was horrendous. But so I'm able to now, it's taken me 15, nearly 20 years to get to this point, but I'm able to say, yes, these are the disorders, for want of a better word. These are the disorders that I've been struggling with.
Okay. And what strategies would you both say that you use to kind of help you figure out, for example, maybe an episode of depression is coming along? How do we figure out, does that make sense? Like what episode, how do you figure out that episode is potentially coming?
Go on, I'm going to let you go first on this.
Also, feel free to have some wine, guys. We are women, wine and wisdom. So
some of this.
We do usually cheers at the start.
But cheers.
And thank you for being so open with your stories.
Yeah, thank you for coming along.
Bear with me. The
mic. It took me a while to figure out when a depression was going to hit. So I had bouts of depression. It goes from anything from 4 to 6 months, usually. Never usually over 6 months, which is quite strange. So sweats would kick in. So this could be like you're in a meeting and then you are sweating. And I mean sweating like constantly. And that to me is a warning sign. Slurring off the words is huge for me. Like as soon as I start to slur, and now I have people that point it out like, you're slurring, are you okay? That is a massive thing. heart palpitations. If I have one panic attack, then I know that's going to be a cycle of depression. So warning signs are there, and it took so long to figure it out. Yeah, so long. And there's coping strategies for it. So I journal every day without fail. I do morning pages. So it's you write 3 pages. Bloody brilliant. Like generally,
what is morning pages?
Yeah,
so as soon as you wake up, before anything, I make my bed because OCD. Ironing it, steaming it.
You steam it?
No.
I was like, oh my God. I thought I was crazy because I'm like, oh wait, I lay my bed every day. But again, it's the difference because I'm like, I wouldn't say that I have OCD, but some of my friends might say that I do.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting.
I do that. Then morning pages, so just a little journal. My house is full of like journals. So 3 pages, anything on your mind. Doesn't need to make sense. You're not going to read it back. Some people do rage on a page as well, which you wake up and you're literally just like,
that, rage on a page.
Can I swear here?
Yeah.
You're literally like, fuck. Shit. But it does work, and it makes you really feel quite smooth for your day. Like it kind of it does work.
I remember morning pages for me. I used to do that, and it's like a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
I need to. It just takes a lot of effort. That's what, and I tend to be lazy in the mornings as well. But what I found was it just empties your mind.
Yeah.
So I used to do that. Yeah, I remember that.
It's brilliant. I think journaling is probably the biggest thing you could do. Journaling saved my life 100%.
Wow.
Like in 2017, I had a breakdown, and I couldn't get an appointment with the doctor, couldn't get nothing. So I was contemplating suicide heavily. I was by myself at home. My housemate was away. So I was just by myself. I turned my phone off. I was like, so how do you do it? And I really thought about and planned how would I do it. And I wrote it down, like, how would I do it? And then I was like, you need to get out of this mind. So I sent an email to the complaints NHS, and that's what I done. And in the tag was, I'm about to kill myself.
Wow.
And that's how I got help. They called me the same day. It was like, honestly, yeah. But then from journaling, from that, I broke the cycle a little bit. So when I went for a bit of therapy, which then I had to wait 3 months for because NHS. But then when I started to journal, like you said, you start to research things to help you, started to do that. It helped me. It honestly saved my life. It saved my life. And then now I journal every single day. You know, I write a blog. I write articles on that, which are about mainly my past. I don't tend to write on the present because I find it a little bit too difficult.
Yeah.
It's my therapy. It's honestly, if no one does it, it's the most powerful thing you could do. It really is.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, and I think journaling, for me, I actually don't journal. And it's definitely something I always say that I really want to actually do. But not even necessarily just for mental health, but just day to day.
Yeah.
Just even gratitude, just little things. So
I used to put mine into playwright. So I would write little short stories, but I would take myself, like I would take some of the thoughts that I had going in my head and then put it into a character.
Okay.
And that was how I used to handle like pressures or things that I was going through.
Yeah.
I bet really helpful.
Yeah.
It was so amazing. I'll just sit on the train like underground, and that was my safe space to do it.
Farhan, what are your coping strategies?
So again, I was saying to you just before we went outside, right? I'm starting to develop a toolbox of strategies, right? And so, as you were saying, right, there's journaling's one morning page. So I'm journaling at the moment, probably not every day, but I'm making an effort to do it every day. But the last 10 years, it's been trying to figure out what those strategies are, right? So for me, I've got to a point where I've got this toolbox of stuff, right? So I recently started meditating, right? And that's something that's had a massive impact on my the ability to deal with stress, right? It's helped immeasurably. I can't even begin to say. Therapy. So I've been in therapy for a couple of years. It's funny you're saying I waited 18 months for an NHS referral to therapy.
That's something
just on a side note for that. I mean, I know that probably not everybody might be able to afford it, but there are other websites that you can use if you need immediate help and you don't want to wait for the NHS.
To be fair, even with the NHS, like Anthony was saying, right? If you're at a point of suicide, right? The NHS will step up, right? Yeah. But those are really extreme cases. Yeah. There's probably thousands of people who are not at that point yet, but still suffering immensely, right? Which is what I was doing, which is a point I was at. However, it still took 18 months. And then even then it was a set number of sessions you had, and then it was over, right? And so what I did, I kept in touch with my therapist, and I've been seeing him privately ever since, right? So I've just been like, you know what, if I have to, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket, right? So therapy is another one. I'm doing exercise. For me, is a form of therapy. So strenuous exercise. I'm always in the gym. Yeah. I was in the gym last night actually. So that's another mechanism I use. So I think they're the three main ones. I'm doing some other work at the moment around having strategies. So one thing I really haven't dealt with up until now is anger. My issues with anger and rage, right? Because it's dawned on me recently how the last few years I've been living my life through that lens of being an angry man, right? Okay. And I've known this for many years. I know the history of why I'm angry very intricately, and yet, the last few years I made a complete mess of my last relationship with my ex, thinking it was all her fault, right? And when I'm looking back now, it's like, nah, dude, you're just an angry man, and you've been filtering the world through this rage that you have, right? So that's something I don't have a strategy for yet. So that's something I'm working on at the moment. But I'd say those are the main ones for sure.
I'm going to touch on the therapy and the meditation, but I want to, as a woman, the rage and the anger thing. Anthony, can you relate to that?
Yeah,
you can relate to that.
Massive. Okay. When I was young, I grew up in quite a rough cancer state anyway. So everything was anger. It was all male dominated. Like there was a couple of women in my family, but on the estate, predominantly men. That was it. Everyone was angry. Everyone was fighting. Everyone was like having scuffs. And so I grew up, like that. And you don't realize until you're older that it's because you're struggling internally and you need an outlet. And if you're bored, I left school at 13, so I had nothing to do. So only thing to do was you go down either an illegal route, you go down an angry route, or you just do nothing. And I went down the route. I went down a bit of all of them. And then I started to hone my skills and study and just because I'm quite an empathetic person as well. I started to people watch and to learn about people and learn a lot about myself. But it wasn't until I was probably in my mid-20s that I stopped having arguments, having fights. Like I attacked my ex-partner once with a table, which looking back is quite funny.
What table?
With a table. Because I had skinny geezer and I picked this table up and threw it at him.
I didn't mean to laugh, I'm sorry. I don't condone
that was when I remembered. I thought like, no, there's something wrong with you. Like clearly something wrong with you. So I started to meditate. I do yoga nidra, and I've done that before I even realised that I had anxiety.
What is yoga nidra? Just for the people that don't know, including me.
It's a form of meditation and breath work, but you can do it. So you lay down, usually do it at night. You don't fall asleep, even though you want to, but you have the urge to stay awake, and it's just breath work. So it's like nasal breath work mainly. So you don't breathe through your mouth because you hold more oxygen in if you're a nasal breather rather than through your mouth.
That's the next step for my meditation.
Really good.
I was just about to touch on that and the meditation. I'm a massive fan of meditation, and I haven't done it in a while. But when I was living in Dubai, I used to do it every morning because it took a while for the school bus to come and pick us up. Okay. So every morning I would do it, and I would honestly try not to fall asleep every single time. It was wonderful. So absolutely wonderful.
Yeah, what I recently learned was Vedic meditation. So this is it comes from the Vedic script, which is from India, which is about 5,000 years plus ago, which predates everything, right? Predates all religions, all philosophies, pretty much everything, right? And the thing that blows my mind about it is it's not a religious or a spiritual practice, right? That you don't have to be of a certain religion or a group of people or a race or a creed to practice Vedic meditation. You can be anyone, right? And it's a physical practice. However, the medical the medical research that has been done, right, is immense, right? So it's a very, and the thing is, if I describe it to you, it sounds like a very spiritual practice, and yet the science that backs it, like the benefits of Vedic meditation is incredible. Like the physical benefits you get from something which is basically sitting down, closing your eyes,
That's powerful, basically.
You know.
Do you feel that that's more powerful than taking like certain pills and medication?
So yeah, interestingly, I came off of antidepressants about 2 months ago, and I was on them for nearly 8 to 10 years.
Wow.
So that was a conscious decision for me. I think what the meditation is helping me with is just having a base level of, it's like my foundation, right? Everything else I do to maintain mental health is built upon meditation. I'm not saying that meditation is the answer. I'm not saying meditation will get rid of everything, but it's the foundation that I've realized is the foundation that I'm going to build upon. Right. And sorry, I forgot the question you asked now.
No, I was just asking if you find that doing things like yoga and controlled breathing is more impactful than having medication.
Medication has its place. So this is a sensitive subject, and I'm not full disclosure, I'm not a medical doctor, or I'm not here to prescribe anything to anyone, right? Medicine has its place. Antidepressants have their place for sure. They help many people. I'm sure of it. For me personally, I just got to the point where it wasn't really doing anything for me. And the side effect. So I'd stopped taking it for a few days, and you really shouldn't stop taking you need to taper off very, very carefully. So I'd get really mad side effects of doing that, and I hated it, and I couldn't stop because it takes at least 3 to 6 months to taper off.
Okay, wow.
So it would be like, okay, I need to stop the immediate side effects, start taking them again, right? So that was really the only reason I was doing it. And then January came. I learned meditation, and I thought, you know what, it's time to stop this now and see how I get on. And so, it took me a few months to taper off. It's helped me, for sure, the meditation. Since I came off the medication, you never know, right? I could go back. I may need medication again in the future. But where I'm at the moment, I think there's enough there, to keep me stable. For sure.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the fact that you said, that both have their place, that medicine has its place. And I guess I want to say alternative practices also have their place. I think as well, therapy, just bringing it back to what you said earlier about therapy is something that's, to me, it seems like it's frowned upon a lot, especially in the male community, actually, which is really interesting. But I'm a massive advocate for therapy. And when we was doing the mental health course at work, I remember sitting next to a lady at work, beautiful, lovely engineer, very smart. And she was saying that, because she also mentioned the gym, she said, people don't question you when you go to the gym for your physical health. So why do people question you when you go to therapy for your mental health? And ever since she said that, shout out Stella, ever since she said that, it's always stuck in my mind, because it's actually very true. When you're going to the gym and you want to get your body in shape, everyone's all here for it. When you want to talk about therapy now, everyone's got a question for you. Everyone wants to know why. Whereas I feel like there's a lot less encouragement when it comes to therapy, and I think we all need to do better in regards to that. But
there's definitely stigma, even now. Like, don't get me wrong, the mental health awareness, all kinds of awareness, these days, there's so much going on within the workplace, within society, so people are very much accepting of it, but there is still that stigma, probably more so going back to the men-women issue with men, right? Because we just don't want to open up like that, or even admit that, you know what, I think I need some help, or even worse than that, be completely ignorant of the fact that you've got a problem, right?
That's true.
Just denial, just self-denial.
My question then is, how does ill mental health affect you in the workplace and in relationships?
For me, it affects me day to day at work. But especially, like I say, when I'm going to have a depressive bout, you're having meetings with your CEO and your COO, and you're sweating, and they think you're nervous, or you're going red, and someone points out, "Oh, you're blushing." It's not. It's a panic attack. It's the start of a panic attack. And I've never taken. The last time I took medication, I was at 12, and I've not taken it since. I have Paranamol, which is as a backup. It slows your heart rate down for panic attacks, and it can stop it, because it's very real. Your tongue will swell up, the sweating, the shakes. You do feel like you're going to vomit. You can't speak like it's debilitating. It's like you're gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah.
So these do help you calm down. So if you imagine you're at work, you kind of look incompetent, or you get fearful that you're going to look incompetent if you're having a meeting, and it's like, oh, you're weak, you're mentally weak. And I do think there's a lot of awareness around it now. But a lot of workplaces, it's very much a tick box.
Yeah.
Like, do your mental health awareness training.
That you said
pisses
that.
me off.
I think
I love that you said that.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I feel like a lot of workplaces don't have tools in place to support and to help their staff when it comes to mental ill health, and even just mental health in general. Like, how do you help them, you know, keep mentally fit? You know, and I think that's a really big thing. I feel like a lot of companies do need to look into it and invest into this, because it's a big thing.
You get so much help, right? And I'm not railing against companies or organizations that hire people to work for them, right? When it comes to physical health, they've got our backs, right? We get private medical. You can get paid sick leave. You can get signed off.
Yeah,
all sorts of things, right? That's the area. That's one area, right? So with physical health, there's all of this help available. Mental health is just as important, right? If not, you could argue even more, because you can think yourself to illness.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So you could argue that mental health is even more important than the physical health that we get so much.
Your brain working properly, you have nothing. It controls everything.
Right. So
it controls your body.
So for me, they both need to sit on the same level, right? And you get the same assistance as you would if you broke a leg, right? And you're out for 8 weeks at a time.
Yeah. One thing I was going to say was that I noticed, and I might be incorrect in saying this, but anytime I would get, say, a cold or a flu, it was because I was feeling overworked and overstressed.
And the immune system gets weakened.
So I do feel like, again, just kind of piggybacking off of what you were saying, workplaces do need to take a bit more, accountability into looking into these things. And just
you're saying that you mentioned checkbox, and I think I said exactly the same thing to you recently, right?
We spoke about this literally the other day. I think we were talking about diversity.
May have been of a different subject. Fair play.
Yeah, we were talking about diversity.
And again, the awareness in workplaces is great, right? I'm not hating against that. It's always good to make people aware of people who have certain issues or whatever it may be. But it does tend to just feel like that, because every year, okay, it's mental health week, right? Let's give a talk about mental health at work. Fine, cool. That's it now. Let's wait till next year, and then the next mental health week. It's like, okay, we're aware. You made us aware.
Yeah.
What next?
I was about to ask.
What next? And I'm not here to give those answers. I have some ideas, but
I was about to say, what ideas could we actually say to companies?
So coaching. So something I've looked up recently, life coaching.
Okay.
Professional coaching is a big one, because a lot, and again, you need to find good coaches, right? A lot of good coaches will have a background in psychology, for example. I know a lady I met recently. This is exactly what she does for a business. She coaches organizations. Yeah. Background in psychology. I think that's something big. I think companies need to invest in getting coaches in, to not just to coach your senior executives, right? Because they get all of that, but for those who want it, right, be able to offer coaching sessions, because it's like where I'm at work 37 and a half, 40 hours a week, right? 5 days out of 7 days a week. I see my work colleagues more than I see people, members of my own family. And I think that's true for everyone that's in a full-time job. So essentially, that's my family there. If I'm seeing more of you than my family. Yeah. Now I'm in this environment for so long. It would be nice to get some assistance if I have these issues, to say, you know what, I'm here, I'm working for you, I'm getting paid a salary, which I'm grateful for sure. I'm making you a ton of money. I know that as well. So, I'm struggling.
You want some investment in
I'm
you,
struggling.
essentially.
So if help me in this area. Anyway, that's my thought on it. It all costs money. The bottom line is, it all costs money. There has to be sufficient interest in it for it to be viable. There's a whole bunch of business decisions that sit off the back of it. So, and I get that as well, I suppose.
Yeah. Anthony, what ideas do you think?
I think certain things don't cost money though. If you've got enough time to micromanage a team or to send endless Teams messages, question marks, if you've got time to walk past someone and go and get a coffee, another coffee, go to prolonged bathroom break as a manager, you have time to go to your team and say, do you want to come for a walk with me? Do you want to have a one-to-one? Do you want to talk? Like, and listen. You don't need to offer advice. No one wants you to offer advice. They want you to just listen. But then this is the whole mental health awareness training thing. The more people that do it, the more you're going to realize that someone's gone through that training. So for instance, certain places that I've worked, if someone's trying to have a one-to-one with me, they're doing it because it's a tick box. I know they are, because they will do all of the right things that you're taught as a mental health awareness trainer. They say, in the right spot. They look, they tilt their head. You can see it. It's, you know, they're doing it. They don't generally care. But if you did, like for instance, I have a couple of people on my team. I ask them constantly, are you okay? Do you want to go for a break? You don't smoke, go for a fresh air break. It's easy things that you can do just to make sure that they're okay. Like you can do it, make sure they go on their break. Don't call them after work. Just one-to-one check-ins is all you need. Just listen to the person. That person might not be receptive. They might not open up about their issues, but they might say, do you know what? I'm a little bit overwhelmed today. Do you mind if I sit this meeting out, or do you mind if I do something else? Give me another task. But you don't know that unless you ask someone what they're doing.
That's the thing. I was gonna say, because during we all get 1 hour lunch breaks. I think, like you said, it's very important to try and encourage your team as a manager to go out and take those breaks. And I think what companies could also look at doing is offering, like maybe like a, what do they call it? Almost like a workshop during, maybe like 12 till 2. Where people can go like a drop-in session, precisely. So where they can go in and actually speak to maybe somebody who can offer some support and guidance. And I think also, there was something else that you mentioned, and I thought, this is a really good point. If it comes back to me, I'll flag it. But
if you think you had a HR manager and now they call them different things, they call them a culture person, head of culture. Bollocks. You have a HR manager. The HR manager should have an administrator to do that other work. And then you should have someone with counsellors or a psychology background that you can drop in and talk to confidentially.
I think that needs to be a dedicated role.
Way back when 100%. HR was that, but now it's not.
It's definitely not. And even just with management, for example, you just said, you ask your team things. I think you as a person, if you need to trust your manager before you even tell them anything anyway. So that in itself, I think managers need better training.
They do.
In how to 100%, because even there's a difference in when you ask questions. How are you today? How are you feeling today? There's a difference, and I think there's something that you said that triggered that thought. And I feel like sometimes in the workplace, and as you just spoke about HR, people don't trust people.
No, they don't.
So they don't want to open up. And that's even making mental health even worse, or ill mental health worse.
That's the biggest challenge to overcome, right? For organizations, for businesses. Because when you are suffering from mental ill health, let's just take depression. I'm depressed. I'm suffering from depression. As a depressed person, the very last thing I want to do is talk about it. And so that's why I'm here, because it's taken me a conscious effort in the last year or so to decide, fuck this. I'm going to talk about this now.
It needs to be spoken about.
Because I have to get these feelings out there, because for far too long they've been bottled up. Anyway, my point is, you get Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, right, in the US, places where people can congregate and share in their pain. You don't have. I was speaking to my therapist about this recently. There's no such thing. I've never come across Depression Anonymous, because, like I say, that's the last thing you want to do, is to talk about your issues. So it's a sort of chicken and egg thing. We want companies to do all of these things, yet if you're depressed and it comes down to trust, knowing that person, a whole bunch of reasons, that's the last thing you're going to really want to do, is to fess up and say, I'm suffering from mental ill health. Because for me, for so long, it was like, I'm going to seem weak.
But then that's where
incapable of doing my job.
Emotional intelligence comes into it. The other person should have emotional intelligence. They should tell if you want to talk about it. They should never push you to do something.
It just takes a bunch of training, doesn't it?
If you had, like you said, if you had a depressed group to go to, the people that would be talking are ones that have come in on the other side. and they're the ones that they can share their experience. And you, as someone who doesn't want to open up about it at the moment, you can listen and learn from their experience.
Sure.
It's a great idea, and probably these places do exist, but they're the minority.
I went to one. I've been to one. It was a meetup group for people with depression years ago now. And we turned up there. It was a good turnout, 20, 30 people. We sat around in a bar, and like I just sat. I was literally the only one talking. Like everyone was sat there, but they weren't opening up, which is a typical symptom of someone who's depressed, right? Even if you're in a group of people, even if you're in a group of like-minded people, you just don't want to work. And I was looking around at people to really input into the conversation. No one was talking, and I found it. Disappointing's a strong word, but I felt a little bit unmotivated because I was like, I'm there, I'm ready to open up. Like, if you're gonna do the same, and yet no one did. But I could see at the same time why they didn't want to.
Yeah, and I'm just I'm relating it kind of back to what you said, I think previously. But everything's going to be in their time, our time, and when they want to open up. Because just like listening to your story, it sounds like, to me anyway, you've got to a place now where you're comfortable in speaking to others, and maybe in that particular point they were just not
for sure. And I think if there was one bit of advice I could give that would make any difference to anyone, right, is speak to someone. I don't care how painful, how against everything that you believe it goes against, right? You have to open up and you have to speak to someone. That's the one thing I'd say, is because as soon as you start speaking is when you will start to see things changing, right? So anyone out there listening to this, anyone out there who's petrified, who's just locked themselves up at home and doesn't want to go out, I've been there, like I've done that. You need to speak to someone. I would urge you to speak to someone.
Yeah. I was going to say from a different perspective, if you're, say, a family member or a friend and you notice that somebody is going through mental health
issues,
mental health. So how would you encourage a friend or a family to support that person, or to maybe get them to recognize that they may be dealing with something? Because I feel that a lot of people are, they, like you say, they bottle up and they don't want to talk about it, and sometimes they deflect.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, if you've got someone in your family that you feel is going through something, you need to set boundaries anyway. You can't bombard them and ask them questions, but then you can't have that or you shouldn't have that mentality to be like, we'll leave them alone, we'll give them space, because you don't know how far ahead they are. They could be contemplate taking their own life. They could be self-harming. There's things that you need to ask. You need to learn how to ask the right questions without being judgmental. And just, again, use your emotional intelligence. As for instance, if someone's locked themselves in their room, they're not showering, they're being antisocial, they're being a bit more aggressive, they're snappy, there might be something wrong with them. You need to know how to approach it and ask the right questions. So instead of you judging them like, oh, I'm going to help you, or I'll give you space and leave you alone. You need to really try and figure out and just make sure that they're comfortable about you. And it's like building trust, like you said before. You need to build that trust so they can come to you if they have issues. And then that's how you start to build things. It's a really, really difficult one. Like it runs in my family. So I've known my siblings to lock themselves in their room for a prolonged period of time. I done it myself. My parents were very much like, leave him alone, he's a teenager. It was not the right approach. But now maybe people are a bit more astute. People know what to do. So I don't think now I would have been left for such a long period of time, because it was dangerous to leave someone in that mental state, but they didn't know. So it is just learning about that other person.
And I think now there is just more awareness, whereas I feel like for our parents per se, there just wasn't that much awareness.
No.
It was taboo.
So everything was just religion. Like, you go pray, you go to church, and God will deal with everything. But that's just hiding behind the fact, people are really suffering and dealing with issues, and they need that support. They need to know that they have a support system.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of also another thing that I wanted to address. How, if somebody is, oh gosh, no, I can't get the words out. Don't worry.
We'll come back to your questions. I feel like it's going to be juicy. But how does this show up in your relationships? So I'm coming back to the table, the table thing. But how does it show up in your relationships? Like, how do you navigate that, and what do you expect from your partner?
Before I realised I had problems or official problems, because certain times I just thought it was normal to be thinking this. So, for instance, if you have OCD, your intrusive thoughts can be really bad. So they can be anything from you need to throw, not that I thought this, but you need to throw that table at that person.